America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You could do the roll call.
Councilmember Gully.
Here.
Councilmember Figueroa.
Here.
Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Men.
Here.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
Present.
Councilmember Soriento.
Here.
Council President Mantello.
I am here.
7 present.
Okay, there is a typo. We do not need to add this unanimous consent and went out in due time last week. So last year we had to do it in 24 hours, so we had to get unanimous consent.
Do you want me to note to have that, Chief?
Please, thank you. We'll open it up to the public forum. Would anyone like to address the council regarding this agenda item? Okay. We'll close the public forum and now resolution 99.
Resolution 99, resolution acknowledging receipt of the mayor's 2024 recommended city budget and setting the dates for the public hearings on the proposed budget estimates for 2024. Council President Mantello.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Councilmember Gully, is there a second? Second. Second, Councilmember Soriento, discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Resolution 99 carries. Very quickly, you will see the next meeting is the finance. We have a number of public hearings, public meetings, and they will be taking us through October, November. At the end of November, we will act on the budget. So many meetings ahead, and many of us dissect the budget line by line. It's very thorough, so I encourage the public to please participate or attend or contact council members regarding Mayor Madden's last and final budget. So it is a proposed budget, and we'll see what our departments have to say. So well, everyone, so resolution 99 carried. I will now open it out to anyone in the public that would like to address the council on any issue regarding our city. I think. All right, we'll close the final public forum. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion, Councilmember Gully, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the special meeting is closed. Now we'll open the finance meeting. We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation with liberty and justice for all. To put roll call, Councilmember Gully.
Here.
Councilmember Figueroa. Councilmember Steele. Present. Councilmember Mims. Present. Councilmember Conley Wilson. Present. Councilmember Soriento. Here. Council President Mantello is here. We have 7 present, 0 absent. This meeting, there is no legislation. However, the Finance Committee will now refer the mayor's proposed 2024 budget recommendations to all the standing committees. I encourage folks out there to look at our hearings that are scheduled, our meetings that are scheduled, and hopefully if you're interested in one or all of them, please feel free to tune in or stop by. So lots to talk about over the next 40 days. And I will then close this meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilmember Soriento, is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, the budget is on its way. Woohoo! Thursday's a big meeting because that's our finance meeting where Andy will give a full like. Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to open. Members of the Public Safety Committee present include Councilmember Gully, Councilmember Mann, Chair Steele, Council President Mantello ex officio, also present this evening, Councilmember Conley Wilson, Councilmember Figueroa, and Councilmember Soriento. This evening's agenda includes reviewing policies regarding speed, cameras, and sirens. We'll also be discussing as part of that the ongoing training and discipline related to those policies. We're going to take a look at the latest crime statistics. And then we will wrap up with a discussion of policies regarding high-risk search warrants. I'd ask the members of the police department to please come forward to make a presentation. We're joined by our chiefs and our corporation counsel. We're here tonight to begin to shed light on certain policies of the Troy Police Department. Though long overdue, it is my hope that we will address the public's concerns about police safety and training with specific respect to speed and cameras. The terrible tragedy of February 22nd weighs heavily on us all, but mostly for the Alakawi family, who suffer every day at the loss of their loved one, Sabi. The people of Troy need to feel safe on our streets, and that includes feeling safe when a police officer is en route to the scene of a crime. There is comfort in talking through tragedies to help cope with grief. Regrettably, we cannot talk completely openly about this specific incident because it is out of our hands and being investigated by the State Attorney General's office. Until those findings are made public, the best we can do tonight is to examine policies and training surrounding those policies, to discuss what ongoing steps are being taken to avoid future tragedies, and to ask our questions. I thank the administration and police chiefs for their cooperation and presence here tonight. This will hopefully be a civil and productive session that promotes greater transparency. We must maintain open communications between our community and the police. Chief, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Steele. So did you want to start with the routine emergency response to calls?
That would be fine if that's what you have prepared.
Yeah, so well, you had mentioned speed. Speed is this is what it's actually called, the routine emergency response to calls. It was last revised in 2012. It's a very good policy. It's reviewed annually. It's part of our accreditation process, so it's accepted by the state as being a good policy. So the purpose is to facilitate the safety of departmental personnel and citizens by ensuring that department members are aware of legal requirements and department policies governing their operation of police department vehicles. All members are given this policy when they're hired. They're also given this policy during their field training. They're also given this policy at various times throughout the year at lineup trainings. So it is periodically reviewed. All members of the Troy Police Department are responsible for exercising due care and defensive driving techniques when operating department vehicles. The provisions of this order apply to all members irrespective of duty assignment. So that means, just as it says, it's for me, it's for people in narcotics bureau or detective bureau that are plain clothes, as well as our uniform division. We have to abide by the vehicle and traffic law, you know, in most every incidences, except for when you're in emergency mode. During that time, emergency mode is when your emergency lights and or siren are activated, and you're given some leeway according to New York State law, so that you can get to the call promptly or get to the emergency promptly. I view that as moving people out of your way, not that you're going to make that much of a difference if you get there 2 or 3 seconds quicker. It's safer to get there, to make it to the call, because if you don't make it to the call, you're not helping anyone. And you're drawing other resources to you if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident. And we're here to serve and protect and provide a safe way, you know, for the public and for us to assist them. So we hammer that home regularly, that if you don't arrive on scene, you're not helping anyone. So we're pretty good about making sure that our officers abide by that and that they don't speed regularly. You know, I mean, only when they're emergency operation, and that they do it with due care, and that they don't, you know, drive recklessly. So there are 2 different kinds of responses. There's the emergency response, which I just explained to you, and there's routine response, which is when you're going to a non-active call. You just drive like the regular public. You know, you're stopping at stop signs and stop lights and not speeding and just arriving on scene, you know, as promptly as you can without violating any vehicle and traffic laws. Our cars are equipped with, you know, overhead lights, wig wags, which are flashing headlights. They have corner strobes on them. They have grill lights so that the public is alerted. They have sirens. Some of the vehicles have what's called a howler, which is like a stepped up siren that's much louder and it kind of vibrates a little bit so that people are aware that you're there. And that's really about it. You know, we're supposed to abide by the vehicle and traffic law in routine assignments, and in emergency mode, we're supposed to use due caution when we're going to a call. If you come upon an intersection, and any intersection, whether you have a red light or a green light, but especially a red light, you have to make sure that if people aren't yielding to you right away, that you yield to them so that you don't cause a collision. And I'm giving any more to add. It's pretty much policy.
Council members have any questions?
Chair,
Councilmember Mendel.
just one question, you know, Chief and Assistant Chief, thank you so much for joining us tonight. One of the things I haven't been able to get a direct answer or not, and if you're not able to tell us, that's fine too. Do all of our cars, including patrol, et cetera, have dash cam?
No, they don't. Actually, I'll let Assistant Chief Barker answer.
Okay,
It's a technical question.
thank you.
So we'll discuss the fleet in generality. So our marked cars in 2021, when we pursued the body cam project, we also added a fleet camera project. Redundancy, but also if we were going to get body cams, it made sense to also do a fleet cam. So in mid-2021, we began installing Axon Fleet 2. Price was not an issue. We went with the best of the best feature-wise that we could get in a fleet camera, because we were later to the fleet game. Other places may have adopted them soon. We had a fresh start and the ability to get the exact technology that we wanted to, so we went with Fleet 2. The design of Fleet 2 was all the components: a front-facing camera, a rear-facing camera in the prisoner partition, and all the network equipment was all wireless. It was designed at the time to be, like I said, the best of the best. We quickly found that in the installations we were doing, the technology was not working. It was not communicating wirelessly. We were having issues with them activating, and we were having issues with them deactivating. Since then, we have now It appears to be, in my opinion, personally my opinion, that Axon also recognized this because we've now bought Fleet 3. Fleet 3 is back to a hardwired install. Everything is wired. There's no wireless. We're currently scheduled to replace all those Fleet 2 units and install these Fleet 3 units just after the beginning of the year. We may talk about it more in the camera reporting process, but those fleet cameras are in redundant measures to our body cams. Our body cams are to be activated when responding in emergency. So it's a redundant measure, provides a different view, because we know cameras only provide that one view, and this gives us another measure, some other data from the view.
Even in the car, the body cam is supposed to be on.
When you're responding to an emergency call for service, when you're dispatched to that call, the officer is directed to activate the body.
Would you mind just at some point, not tonight, giving us a breakdown of timeline, you know, the cars and all that?
Any other questions on that particular aspect of the bill? Councilor Figueroa.
So I was just a little curious, Chief, you mentioned that the state provides some kind of leeway when you guys are on an emergency call. What are some of those policies that kind of leeway that they provide when the emergency call, when you guys are en route to an emergency call?
Well, there's a lot of them actually. I mean, you can exceed the speed limit. You can pass through a stop sign or a red light using due caution. You have to use caution and all that, make sure the other people are yielding to you. You can drive on the shoulder, you can go down a one-way street if you had to. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are okay as far as New York State DEP law when you're in emergency mode. We don't encourage any of that, only, I mean, we want people to get there safely, so sometimes you may have to go down a one-way road because the accident is on this end of it, and you can't get to it by going the correct way, so you have to go the wrong way, so we're not gonna, you know, I mean, that's why they allow for those leeways. There's a lot of circumstances where you may have to violate the vehicle traffic law in order to get the call.
If you're in emergency mode and the siren is on, does that automatically trigger the body camera to be on?
So again, in generalities, not any specific incidents, but the body cam is independent of the call. So the body cams can only be activated manual activation. There's other ways that Axon can program in to have them activated, but we found none of them to be reliable enough to trust. The car camera can be activated in a few different ways. One is the first way it can be activated manually activated. The officers can turn them on as they're directed. Our signal box has a rocker lever. That's 3 stages, being 1, 2, and 3, and you get more lights with each stage. The cameras are configured to turn on at that first stage. So as soon as the lights begin to activate, our cameras are in no way connected to our sirens. So if a police car's lights are on, that car is designed to then activate the camera. The cameras, the fleet cameras are also activated by set speed, 75 miles per hour, and the vehicle cameras are also activated at a collision if the system's not in collision.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Sorrento.
Hi, I have a question. So, is there like a maximum speed that you can drive or like a limit? Even though you're able to exceed the speed limit, but is there like an absolute maximum? Or during emergency calls?
There isn't one listed in the policy
Okay,
or in the vehicle traffic law, but you have to use, you know, due care. I mean, so if you're not able to control the vehicle because you're going too fast, then you shouldn't go that fast. You know, I mean, you're in control, and it doesn't take away your responsibility as a driver, even though you're a police officer with lights and sirens on, to be able to, you know, avoid an accident or to not cause an accident. So while there's no speed listed, obviously you can't go so fast that you're not able to correct.
And another question, and it seems a little far-fetched, but you never know, it can happen. Probably on a rare occasion, hopefully never happens, but, what if there was a school bus that stopped and was
You have to stop and you have to be flagged through by the school bus driver. So even if your license sirens, doesn't matter, license sirens, you're going, you must stop and have that bus driver flag you on. So that, yeah, that's in the law.
Here.
Councilmember Mann?
So what you described for dash cams, the auto on, flip, you hit 70 miles an hour, you're in a collision, or you flick your lights on to that first lowest level setting. And you said that right now, our fleet of police cars, some of them have the wireless, some of them are hardwired, the wireless is proven to be unreliable, and it's being replaced with wires. Is that an accurate summation?
None have the wire technology yet. Wire technology is more recent. It's already purchased, secured. It was scheduled date, I believe January. It's either January or the first week of February, but the installers are on site to have it.
And then about how long will it take to and will it replace the entire vehicle fleet?
That's 20, and we bought 20 units, so that will, all our marked cars.
All of our cars will have a hardwired, so we know that starting as they get installed in January 1st, the lights come on, the dash cameras are,
Yes.
so obviously up until this point, coming from, we're relying on human beings. And what are the protocols for when an officer knows to turn their dash or knows to turn their body camera on? You know, like you're trying to get in a car, quick it or ticket, you know, put your seatbelt on, but not everybody does that. And then, you know, so like, how are you training and ensuring that when someone puts their lights on to go to an emergency, they know to have their dash camera? How are you eliminating the human error?
Yeah, that's well, it's in the policy that they have to do that. And then there's audits that are done by the supervisors. So they take a random sampling and they make sure that people are in compliance. If they're not in compliance, then it's brought to the attention of their captain and then it's dealt with from there. So that's how we do it. I mean, there's overwhelming compliance with it because the officers like having the body cams because it's able to show their perspective because otherwise you only get the other person's perspective when they're explaining things. So at least you get to see, everybody gets to see what really happened. You know?
And what have been some of the barriers that you found that causes people to not turn their body cameras on?
I've only just forgetfulness or, you know what I mean? Or they might be a little late, so they're on way somewhere and then they did it, or they're in the middle of something else. I mean, because they're dealing with a lot of the time. And you're right, there is human error involved sometimes. So you might forget to hit that. I mean, you gotta hit it in order to activate it. It's always in a buffering mode. So once they hit the street, it's in a buffering mode. So all they gotta do is tap it to activate it. But I don't see a lot of it, do you, where they're not.
No, I think in the initial stage, when we first launched the project in mid-2021, it was a slow roll. There was probably more forgetfulness. Taking it part of your normal behavior. Now,
Are you speaking on the mic?
now we don't encounter through all the different audits very often at all.
And then as part of those audits, is that information that's available to the public so they can see statistically, you know, what you're discovering in terms of compliance, non-compliance, the trend?
I would have to defer to, well, I mean, there are documents that are within the agency. There's a variety of different audits that are done for all sorts of things, whether it's body worn camera activation or financial audits, all sorts of things that are performed.
Yeah.
For
But that-
checks and balances.
But if someone foiled it, then that information would be available to the public and they could look it up.
Yeah, it doesn't have any real case info. It has the incident being reviewed, some identifying information on the officer, the date, supervisor, whether it was in compliance or whether there was additional, some type of action that was necessary based on it.
Chair,
Council President,
regarding the policy, Steve, thank you so much, for the update, especially on the dash cam. I wasn't aware of that, so I appreciate that. Regarding the body cam policy, it is, I'm just trying to get correct on it, so it's not in force now, it's not in policy, is it in draft form?
It is in policy.
It is.
A directive was written and it is in pretty much overwhelming compliance. That the ongoing, I wouldn't call it litigation, the ongoing back and forth with the city administration, the PBA is a separate thing. People, the officers are using. And they're using it the way they're supposed to be using it. The only caveat was that at the end of the policy, it had said that because it wasn't agreed to yet, that there couldn't be discipline imposed, but that's a kind of a separate matter, really. I mean, the directive was written, that you wear it, this is when you will wear it, this is how you will use it, this is how you download it and so on, and it's being complied.
So the officers now, there's a directive. that-
Correct.
Okay. I thought it was not agreed upon, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I don't want to get into that part of
No,
it, but they, you know, it was written pretty much by the PBA and the command staff, so it's pretty much agreed upon. It's a separate issue.
Okay.
Chief, could you tell us when that directive, off the top of your head,
June 18th, 2021.
2021?
Wow.
I mean, there was definitely a, you know, a moving in period, you know, where it took a little while for people to get used to it and all that, but once they did, it's like nobody leaves without one. I mean, you wouldn't be able to leave Atlanta without one because the sergeant would see that you didn't have one anyway. So it's followed. The directive is followed.
Is it typical for an officer to turn on his body cam during a conversation, then turn it off, turn it on, turn it off?
Only,
Or-
or you have to articulate why you would do that. So depending on what the incident is, like if you're in an enforcement action, it's on the entire time. There's no reason to turn it off unless you're then speaking to a witness or something and they need to shield their identity or something like that. And you would have to articulate why you did that. You can't just arbitrarily turn on and off whenever you feel like it. It would violate the policy.
And what, if there is a violation of policy, you said they would be written up, what is the type of, what would be the ramifications, the disciplinary
So
action?
at this point, there hasn't been too much. There's been a couple where it's been chalked up to training and counseling. So they've been brought in and spoken to and counseled, you know, a written counseling memo, but that's actually considered training. It's not considered discipline. But they're kind of clawed on the carpet, you know what I mean? So they're made aware of it.
And how often do these audits, I mean, are they random and?
The audits are, yeah, the audits are random, but they're at least monthly, right? If I'm correct, in any of the use of force ones. So anytime that the force is used, the body camera footage is automatically looked at by the use of force committee. So it's looked at often. I mean, you know, we try and keep a good eye on it because we want to make sure that they're compliant, but you know, honestly, overwhelmingly, they are compliant. I mean, you always have some outliers. You always have some people that forget to do it, but that's a rare instance. Because more often than not, it saves them, it helps them. You know what I mean? More than it hurts them. So they actually like going out with them. I would say that the overwhelming majority of the department wouldn't leave without one because they feel that strongly about having one on.
Thank you.
Chair.
I think Councilmember Mann and then Councilman Fiore.
Shifting to speed and siren. You know, obviously, we're a city with a lot of limited sight line. and it's all throughout the city. And so, well, you can't see here. Well, for most people. But I do notice that like, I'm on a North Road corridor and I get chirps at stop signs, but I don't always have consistent sirens. So what's the tipping point between leaving your siren on and as you're traveling all the way versus hitting an intersection and making those burr noise? Is there a flash out policy? And if not, can you describe sort of what the standards?
Yeah, so typically you should have your siren on the entire time. The police department, fire department, ambulances, they should have it on if they're in emergency mode. The only reason why you wouldn't have it on, and you would have to explain why you didn't have it on, suppose you're going to like a burglary in progress and you don't want the person to know you're coming, or a hold-up alarm or robbery or something like that. But that's generally, or there's not a pursuit, but I mean a foot pursuit, you know what I mean? You're coming up from a different angle or something like that. You might be able to surprise the person, but that's about it. I mean, they should have the siren on, and we've been, I know you're right. I've seen it myself. And they're not always going to calls like that. And that's something that we've been working on, that you have to have it on all the time. Sometimes it's out of, honestly, sometimes depending on the time of night, it's out of, I don't want to wake up the whole neighborhood because I know there's no traffic and there's nobody coming. And, I don't want to blare that thing the whole way, but those days are gone. You're going to blare it the whole way. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
There's no traffic until there's traffic,
right.
and there's traffic at any time of day. And I think part of living in a city and an urban environment is you have noises that tell you that, someone else in your community needs help. And so like, I think when people get frustrated, oh, the sirens woke me up. There's the reframing, that's somebody who needs help.
Yeah, right.
And
I'm with you.
yeah, and how are you addressing that issue with the department to change that? For being thoughtful, courteous, it's 3 in the morning versus,
No, it's been reiterated a lot more in the last several months. That you are to have that on pretty much no matter what. If you're putting your lights on, you're putting your sign.
and it's more of a bright.
I mean, it's acceptable. So you have your siren on the whole way, and you're a half a block from the scene, and there's cars there, and you turn it off and you chirp to get around a couple. Sure, that's acceptable. You know what I mean? Because you see a whole bunch of other emergency vehicles. So if you're not aware of them, that's kind of on you. But as far as going to a call, just chirping at intersections isn't, except in those few examples where I said, if it's not safe, well, then you just got to keep it on anyway. Even if you are going to those types of calls.
A burglary or.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's the middle of the day and there's traffic and there's a lot of pedestrians and stuff like that, well, then you gotta have it on. I don't care if you're going to a whole car. It doesn't really matter. The safety of the citizens and the motoring public is more important.
Councilman Figueroa?
So my understanding, Parker, you said that the dash cam will activate at 75 miles per hour.
Yes.
How was that determined? Is it something you guys programmed it? Did it activate at 75 miles per hour or?
Yeah,
And then the other question is why at 75 miles per hour? That's kind of a high velocity.
so it can be set at anything. The thought is that would be a circumstance when other fail safes have already not occurred, not manual operation, the lights is not. So this is somebody who's driving at an excess speed with no lights on. The thought is being ordered by 787. This is, in that instance, someone is responding to a call because their lights aren't on. So they're driving somewhere with absolutely no lights on, being ordered by 787. We have cars that are sometimes on 787 either being relayed across the city or whatever they might be doing in normal operation, not responding to a call. The thought was as soon as they hit 75, that's access to us. We want that camera as another fail-safe to be activated in that circumstance. Really just to tell somebody's going without responding to an emergency call with no lights again, because if any light was on, that camera would already be on. It has nothing to do with speed. This is someone who's just routinely driving, and we just thought highway.
Councilmember Conley Wilson.
So for, I guess one of my questions is for, the follow, do you guys have a policy in terms of like how long you keep that dash cam footage or the body cam footage? et cetera?
Yes, so all of the footage other than anything, so when you generate any sort of camera recording, afterwards you have to categorize it based on what the incident was. So the only thing that is kept for a minimum of 6 months is those cat recordings. So if there's a 2-second video of any of our systems that was made in error or testing something. Anything else is held for the minimum of the notice of claim period, but 3 years and 183 days. In addition to that, if anything becomes part of a case or an arrest, at this point, it's held indefinitely until the state can provide further guidance. Because at this point, it's murky digital evidence at the state level. So we usually look for the general municipal law on types of retention for digital evidence. But at this time, a minimum of 3.5 years, and any time where there's an arrest or certainly any investigation that's significant, it's held for a lifetime.
I understand, I know there's ongoing investigation, but I'm gonna ask anyways. Is there dash cam footage from, that incident?
This is an active litigation. It's also an active investigation by the Attorney General. City of Troy has not completed a formal investigation yet. And I do not believe it would be correct or in the taxpayers' interest to answer particular questions about this investigation at a public hearing.
Can I continue to ask those questions? Because I think those, I disagree, I do think it's important to.
I just don't think that the chief can answer that.
Okay. Well, I'm still gonna ask this question. Sorry, I'll deal with one.
Anyone?
Sure.
Yeah.
Quick question, Greg, you may be able to answer this. Do we have any timeline from the state AG, their investigation, and has the city and command staff been interviewed? And is there also a copy of the state police report? I have not seen it. And have any of you?
The state, I'll go back. The
Thank
state
you.
police
Thank you.
report was done by the state police at the behest of the Attorney General. And that has been, I've heard, not been formally notified that it's been turned over to the Attorney General.
Oh,
It has not formally been released to the city.
okay.
We do not have a timeline on the state police, on this Attorney General investigation. I know they have at least one more officer that they want to interview. I do not know if they intend to interview command staff further or not, and I do not know when they'll come to their conclusions. But I do know that they have requested that the city of Troy not conduct its investigation or comment on their investigation while their investigation is pending. In the meantime, the city has did receive a notice of claim from the Alacali family, the state of Alacali. A 50H was conducted, and just last week we received the summons and complaint.
I'm sorry, 50 page.
50H is a hearing that a municipality is entitled to conduct when it brings a claim filed within 90 days. So that is an active litigation. The damages alleged are substantial. And, there will be discovery in that litigation, and that will proceed.
Councilmember Mann.
Chair. So to kind of loop back, so January 1, Chief Parker, you said we'll be getting the hardwired, reliable dash cams that'll have these 3 sort of auto triggers to kick on, install the fleet free, which will cover all of the marked cars. Is that correct?
The early part of that year, it's January, February, so they gave me a specific date, I have back in the office.
It's
I haven't
2020.
seen Kylie. Absolutely,
2024, and that should be completed in the course of 2020.
it only takes a day or so to do multiple cars.
Great. Currently, we have the wireless cameras. What proportion of those are working in a reliable manner, if any?
Like 5 or less.
Yeah.
6 were never installed because we were waiting on those vehicles. Those are the vehicles that we came to council to find our sole source because we couldn't get any vehicles. Some have just been limped along over the time buying components for, just getting through the technicians to get them. But again, in fleet is definitely a priority. It's a redundant measure because every uniform has a body cam, which is directly to be recording when they're responding.
So right now, essentially, our fleet of what, 44 cars, then?
I think the marked cars were at about 18 or 19.
Oh, 18 already, I beg your pardon. So right now, essentially, we have about 5 functioning dash cams in our cars. Majority of our cars do not have dash cams. We have body cams. Body cams do have an element of human error, even though it seems like you've taken a lot of training and policy methods to try to reduce that. But like, that is what we are relying on right now for reporting of it. Is
Yes,
that fair assessment?
I think there will be human error no matter what camera we have. Even fleet cameras have human error to them, but correct that it's 5 or around there.
Mhm. So, you know, that just sort of gives us like, I see by installing the dash cams, you're creating that redundancy, eliminating some of the human error. For one, we know that the vehicle is, you know, in an emergency mode. What do we have, if anything, to check speed? And if you mentioned 70 miles an hour, once we have those hardwired dash cams, using 775, using 787 is a really efficient way to go north-south, 7 miles up and down the city. And obviously, if you're flying with traffic, we've all been on 787. 75 miles an hour is not unusual. But what do you have for checks and balances for monitoring speed within the city where you don't expect to see that high rate?
So in addition to fleet technology, there's no other like fleet or GPS monitoring that we have in the vehicles other than the black box or the data box, which has been used in other investigations we've done before.
Have you ever considered looking at adding GPS tracking in terms for tracking speed?
There was a project years ago that fell apart for this administration, I think for a variety of reasons. But since then, no, we haven't seen any other technologies for it.
And there aren't any like speed regulators, you know, you get behind that vehicle, it says, oh, I can't drive faster than the speed limit, that I'm tracked by my boss. But there's nothing like that on our vehicle.
No, the black box records the speed, but it doesn't control the speed.
Okay. Sure.
Council President.
Yep, thank you so much, Steve, for you're giving us some information that we didn't have. Compared to other municipalities, I know that, you go very deep, in terms of just your skills and your knowledge about, technology. And in terms of policy, how does our policies compare to other municipalities? And, you know, I know that we look at that quite a bit, and I'd like to hear your thoughts in terms of, you know, you and I know we can always do better, and, what's your feel in terms of our policies compared to other municipalities?
Are you specifically talking about The fleet cams or,
The fleet cams and the sirens, the
as far as the routine emergency calls for service policy,
VLP.
the VTL,
or VTL.
yeah, so it's more stringent than the New York State VTL. So I mean, I would call it a model policy as far as, as far as that policy is concerned. In the fact that there was a quip in some newspaper I read that said it hadn't been looked at, since 2012. It's been looked at every year. And it's a very well-written policy that is more stringent than the vehicle and traffic law. So you don't want to change it. It's a good policy. You keep it that way. You just look at it and make sure that everybody's complying with it. As far as the body worn camera policy and fleet policy, that it appears to be well written. We gathered policies from across the state before it was written, and we sat with members of the PBA, the command staff, a number of people to look at other model policies and write our policy so that it works for us. I mean, if you have more technical questions, then Steve might be able to answer for you.
I appreciate that. It's important, obviously, to look at other municipalities.
Oh, definitely.
Get it right.
We do that with
Yeah,
a number of policies. I mean,
sure.
the whole accreditation process is, you have similar policies to other departments in the state.
And I recall when the council appropriated the money for the body cams, we talked about it and, what our other municipalities do. And we actually saw, I think Albany had a couple pickups. And we looked at that and ensured that our policy did not replicate certain things. I recall that. So that's why I was wondering how we compare to. other
Sure. It's completely understandable. It compares.
Any other council members? Councilmember Campbell's.
I'm kind of curious in terms of the body cams, why we have a policy in which they're not automatically turned on.
They are automatic. When you leave the station, you have to turn it on. It's in what's called a buffering mode. So it's not recording at the time until you're in an enforcement action or you're going out on patrol or for a variety of reasons it's activated. But it's working, it's on. It's just not always recording.
So let me rephrase my question then. So,
But you wouldn't want it recording if you go into, say, the elementary school for something, or, you know what I mean? Because you're interviewing a small child about something, or you don't want it at the hospital with a sexual assault victim, or, so there's reasons why you wouldn't want to be recorded.
and then to have it so it's recording and then you turn it off in these moments in which, you don't want to be recording.
You know, oftentimes it is on and you do have to turn it off. So like if you're on a call, say with a person in crisis, and you're dealing with them on the street, it's on the entire time. And when you get to the emergency room, you turn it off. So in many instances, it is on in recording, which is not always.
Kind of getting back to some of the policy stuff. So if someone doesn't fails to yield while an officer is going through other tickets written to that person that didn't yield to the officer.
Yeah, it depends on the circumstance. Not in every case, but sometimes it is, yeah.
Do you know how often those tickets are written?
I don't. I mean, we could probably look in our track system and find out, but I don't know.
And then how many, the number of collisions that have happened over the past, 5 years in terms of failure to yield?
No, I don't know.
Past
offhand.
year or anything like that? So,
It's certainly stuff we can find out for you, but I wasn't prepared to answer that. I don't know, just off the top of my head.
okay. What kind of trainings have you guys taken to ensure an accident like this doesn't happen again, or steps aside from the investigation?
Well, by going over the policy regularly, by looking at what's going on in the streets. You're a sergeant, you're a captain, chief, whoever it is. If you see somebody that's not complying with policy the way that we have it written, they don't, say, suppose they have their lights on and not their siren on. And I see that, I say something about it, and that's what's expected of other members of the department, that, you know, I mean, we have to police each other, and we can't just do what you want. I mean, we definitely reinforce that you have to comply with policy, but not just for everybody else's sake, but your own sake too. I mean, you know, like I said, if you don't arrive there or you get hurt on the way there, you hurt someone else there, well, then what good are you? You know, I mean, just cause damage to everybody.
So, what happens when someone gets injured? Maybe not like in this case, but it's like, I don't know if there's other instances where folks have gotten, I mean, there's one other one that's glaring, but, you know, so when someone gets injured, let's say, what is the police's response? To the department?
I'm not following.
So when
exactly
there's
what
a
you're asking.
collision,
Yeah,
what are the next steps after that happens? Like, what happens to that police officer, for example?
it depends on what the investigation yields. If it yields that they were in violation of the policy, or that they were, you know, driving in a, you know, in a reckless manner, or there's circumstances that don't show that they were allowed to be driving that way, well, then the internal investigation to be conducted, and discipline to be doled out up to and including termination.
Out of curiosity, for this particular incident, when did the police investigation start? Or has it not?
For February 22nd,
Yeah,
it started as soon as the collision happened and the first car was on scene that wasn't involved in it. It starts there. And it was pretty much handed off around, or at least combined around 4 a.m. that morning. The AG Douglas described that.
for the AG phone. Kind of going back to that, the routine emergency response call. So in a,
Well, routine or emergency?
just a routine response
Yeah.
to, like, I know the other day, I was on Third Street, there were officers without their lights on. Like, I know they're just kind of rounding the corner on, not Liberty, Division Street. But I didn't notice any lights or anything like that on. Is that normal to be going down the incorrect way down the street? Just responding to, I didn't notice any lights on or anything like that. And I thought that was odd.
No, I mean, if they're going the wrong way on a one-way street and it's not blocked by emergency vehicles, or there's, you're being like brought that way because it's a safe passage, then yeah, you should have your lights on. If there's a collision at, say, Division and Third, and you're on Division and Fourth, and it's blocked, so no one can come that way, it wouldn't be, you know, odd for you to not have your lights, you know, there, but otherwise you should have them.
I think those are all my questions right now. Thank you.
Any others? Councilmember Ben?
When we have had, collisions with police involving a police vehicle, you know, you said in this particular case, the AG's office basically took over the case pretty right away. When we've had other incidents where there hasn't been a loss of life, what triggers a third party, either state police, attorney general, or a different regulatory body to come in and take over that investigation? So that we're not self-investigating something.
So if there's a serious, so we won't talk about fatality because it's automatically goes to the AG's office. So if there was, say, a serious physical injury to either the officer or the other person or pedestrian or whatever, then we usually bring in the state police to assist in accident reconstruction. So they do that whole part of it in conjunction with us. So it's like a joint investigation at that time. It's not completely handed over, but they do that part of it.
And so sort of essentially that front to investigation, gathering that evidence so that it's going to a neutral third party. So that you get a more objective analysis.
That's part of it. The other part is that they just have the technology and they do it regularly. I mean, they're highway cops, so that's what they investigate a lot of crashes.
Okay, so they have better tech and more experience. I guess where I'm trying to figure out the tipping point too is like, if a physical injury, and a death, obviously pretty clear, bright lines. What happens when it's property damage, a vehicle damage, like hit by a police officer or hits a police officer? What's that tipping point? Where's the discretion for having, say, police, attorney general's office come in and look at that and.
I don't know that they would, the attorney general's office probably definitely wouldn't.
Okay,
The state police, I don't know that they would, and it's not commonplace that you would have another agency come in for property damage accident. And there's so much, I mean, luckily, there's so much private video and cameras and stuff out there that, you know, usually assist in the investigation too.
how can, if you do have your own, like household security camera, Ring doorbell or whatever, and you do want to share it with the police department for an investigation or a different investigatory body, is there a method that people can do?
Yeah, there's on the Troy NY website, you can sign up so that we're aware that you have videos, so that if something happens in your neighborhood or near home, that we would be able to reach you and say, hey, you know, we saw that you signed up to allow us to share your video for our investigative purposes. So there is a link there for people to sign up for it. And then we just canvass the area anyway when something like that happens to see if anybody has cameras, but more often than not, people are fine with having us be able to, you know, review it or copy it.
And then I don't know I know some municipalities have stoplights that have fancy sensors that will respond to an emergency services vehicle. You know, boom, 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 turn all the lights green, you can just fly down the street and know, like, this might be a better question for Bill Wrangler in the streets. But do you know if that's technology Troy has?
No, we don't.
We don't need to have some lights.
Sorry, I think I love it. Every stop, no, it's all right. And every stop and go light is 50 grand. So, and just for the base model, so probably not in reach to get super fancy programs. Stop lights like that. I think that's like for my current question. So thank you.
Chiefs, do you have any more aspects of speed, cameras, sirens, training procedures, discipline that you didn't get a chance to touch on that you wanted to, from our questioning?
I think that we covered most everything. I want to be emphatic in that we care deeply about the community. We care deeply about our officers, and we want them to get the calls timely to help those that are in trouble, but we want them to get there safe. You know, and we hammer it as much as we can. You know, it's regular. Like I said, you know, it's everybody's job in the department to say, hey, you know, what are you doing? You need to slow down, or why wasn't your siren on, and so on. So I don't know, what more we can do. We're doing everything we can do to make sure that our officers comply, and by and large, they do comply. There are those accidents, crashes, whatever you want to call them, that occur. But, you know, it's a 24/7 operation, and sometimes these things happen, and they're, you know, they're oftentimes the public's fault too, not just the officer's fault. So I don't want to just cast this on the officers all the time. A lot of people don't comply. I see ambulances every day going down the road and people just don't, like, they don't have a care in the world. They don't pull over, they don't stop, anything.
Can we, at this point, then, if no other questions? Councilmember Ben?
If people were to notice a police car, because they are numbered, flying, doing something that, like, based on our discussion today, lights not on, moving fast, running red, how can they knock them out?
How can they what?
How can we get that information back to the chiefs?
Well, they can, I mean, that would be kind of a personnel complaint. I mean, so it's available online. You can call, you can fill out online. There's a variety of ways. You can call the mayor's office. I mean, it's, there's a number of ways that you could let us know that occurred.
Yeah, and I think having that back and forth, that provides a stream of information if there's a particular neighborhood, maybe where lights and sirens aren't getting used regularly. Getting that stream of information flowing back, and where could somebody who makes that observation, time, date, car number, what they saw, where should they send that information if they're concerned enough that they
I
want?
would prefer that they send it in a personnel complaint or contact our Office of Professional Standards or Internal Affairs Department.
So Office of Professional Standards of the police department or a personnel complaint, and is that available on your website?
It is,
Okay,
yeah, as well as the phone number.
great.
And that they can call my office, they can call a variety of numbers there, but those would probably be the best. My office, Assistant Chief's office, Deputy Chief's office, or the Internal Affairs.
Yeah, because you can only fix the problems you know about.
Correct, and you don't know what you don't know.
Council President?
Yep, this will be quick. I did read in the TU article, that domestic call, the siren is required in the policy. Is that accurate or no?
Yes, that's
It is
that's one of them.
accurate.
Yeah, if it's an active fight or domestic.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So domestic, okay. Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that. I think we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an update on crime statistics.
Sure. So, we're really not doing too bad. I mean, our homicides are down. Our homicides are down for the year. The last two homicides, every homicide is terrible. The last two homicides were solved and are estimated within 48 hours of happening. And that's a testament to the hard work that our members do. Our sexual assaults are in half of what they were last year. Robberies are right around the same. There was a anomaly for aggravated assaults, which covers a myriad of different penal law charges. It looked as though that it was higher, but it was really just being reported differently because we have a new record management system. So things were duplicated, but we contacted DCGS because it was bothering me. I looked at it, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. What is driving this number? And they were able to explain that honestly, our number is pretty much level with what it was last year. So there isn't really any increase in aggravated assaults, which I was very happy to hear. Our burglaries are pretty much the same. It looks at this point, there's like 10 more than there were last year. Our larcenies are down about 25%, and motor vehicle thefts are pretty much right around the same. Our property crime overall is down 17%. And it shows for violent crime, it shows that it's up around 25–30%, but that's being driven by that wrong aggravated assault number. Because if you look at the homicides and the rapes, which are violent crimes, they're down. They're both down considerably. So that's that I'll have to look at having to fix that because that doesn't jive. So overall, I mean, violent crime and property crime we're in a pretty good place. I'd like it to be better. I mean, I wish that we had some more people on the street, but We're currently down 7 positions. And we're not just gonna hire anybody. We have 1 person that's in the academy right now. I'm hopeful that we're gonna be able to put a few people in the next academy. And we just gave our test, which unfortunately only garnered about 60, 70 people that took it. But it wasn't unique for, you know, it was the same way in Colony, Albany, Schenectady, and so on. And we have maybe 4 or 5 people out on sick or injured. So that brings us down considerably, you know, when you're talking about 11 or 12 positions that aren't coming to work every day. And we're still doing a very good job. But
I want to let the chief finish, if I could.
yeah, I was, I mean, I'm pretty much finished. We do a lot of community engagement work. It isn't just crime driven, you know, what I mean, by doing these pop-up barbecues and park walk and talk and bringing the MCC to neighborhoods and stuff like that to try and not just deter crime, but to, you know, make friends with the community and be around for the kids and it's, you know, there's overwhelming welcome from those communities when we go there and they ask for more. So I'm happy about that. You know, we have a cadet program. We have an intermittent reading program in the school that this year it hasn't really taken off yet, but it's been the last 2 years we've had it. So that's about it.
Thank you. Councilmember Gully.
Thank you. Chief, I recently seen a sign for the PPD ad or police department ad. The little board that was set out. Did that have much of a result? I mean, 60 people.
Yeah, we had 110 people sign up,
Yeah.
but we only had about 60 people show up for the exam. Now, the exam that was given in 2019, I think it was, we had over 400 people sign up. A lot of things happened between then and now.
Are you able to do a test at any time? Does it have to be within a certain period? I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it's
you can
gotta-
put another test to try to enhance that list.
We could, but we couldn't do it yet. But we can do it more frequently than every 4 years. So we're going to do that. We're gonna have to do that.
And maybe, I know you guys are out there in the community. Do we engage at these events to get people to think about maybe a career in,
Yeah, we have, you know, we have our core, it's called. It's an acronym and I can't,
the cadets?
yeah, so core is Committee on Recruitment and Retention. So to try and keep the officers that we have and to also recruit. So we've gone to, you know, job fairs at colleges. We go up to the high school at a much younger degree. We actually have a program that's up at Hudson Valley that we're going to attend. It's not our program. There's a, you know, like a kind of like a what's your interest day up at Hudson Valley. And so we're going to have a table up there and have our cadets up there to speak to some of those kids because it's geared towards 8th and 9th graders. But at least it gets them thinking about, you know, a career in law enforcement or public service in general. So yeah, I mean, and we have stuff on our website. I'm constantly asking, you know, like, hey, you know, think about Troy, you know, I mean, would you like the lateral here and so on? Because the laterals at this point are what would really help us because they're already trained, retrained, they need minimal field training and they'd be on the street. So I know State Civil Service is working on a new way of giving the exam so that like state police are now doing, you'd have like a whole week and you could go to a testing site and it would be much better. So I hope that they make some headway with that.
But that only gets them through the first step. Then it comes to the physical
Oh, yeah.
abilities. And I know that not everybody can cross that line once they get there. I think recruitment is very much important, and I have to assume, and you probably talked to one of the other chiefs around, that they're having the same issues in other municipalities.
Oh,
They're not getting the people.
And you're talking like some of those municipalities are very nice places that pay very well and they're still not getting the people that they need. So, and the worrisome part for us is that some of these places didn't typically take laterals or you had to live in that municipality. Those days are gone. Residence requirements, forget about it. You can't find people. So some of those places that are higher paying are gonna start taking people that well, I mean, why not? You can get paid more, you can work in a less busy environment, so you know, that's why we're really trying to keep the people that we have.
How about any type of engagement with the military, people that are coming out of their service with the military that might be interested in engaging in a career as a police officer or in protection with us or?
Well, when we did it, we had, that video that we had put out, it was, you know, it was on Channel 13 and a couple other, it was streamed through Roku and somewhere else where it actually specifically went towards people in a certain demographic. So we tried that. I mean, it's just not, it's like a lot of public service jobs out there. There's not a lot of people that are taking. It's the same way with the fire department, same way with social workers, you know, medical staff. I mean, it's difficult.
Thank you for your answers, appreciate it.
Chief, in the interest of transparency, are these crime statistics available on the website?
We could probably put something together. They're not. This is something that is put together by the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center, and it is not for public view the way it's written. But we could certainly put something together that we could put out.
I think that would be helpful if possible.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilmember Men.
Yeah, just talking about retention and attracting officers, because you did say, you know, you're down 11 to 12 between injuries and vacancies. So, you know, you guys actually did advertising in a lot of creative ways, saw it in a lot of different places throughout the city, and didn't even see some of the ads that you talked about being on TV. How did you guys fund that?
We had I asked for a line item in my budget so that we would be able to do that. Thank you. You funded it.
Yeah. But you know, it is one of those things that we've seen across the board, how difficult it is to attract and advertise positions. Is something that council talked about over the last few years. And so he was seeing that, seeing the department do something different. I was like, they're doing something different. Something that, you know, we could see a lot of success in, if we could have it in the fire department and in code enforcement and in personnel. So, putting a line item in, as simple as a thing. In terms of retention, what's the tipping point where you see people are most likely to leave to go to another municipality or state? At what year in their training do they get snatched away?
Usually it's early in their career, because once they get settled and they're at full pay and they're in a good assignment, they tend to stay. You know, because the benefits are very good and the culture in the department is very good. And it's a very good department. I mean, a lot of people, honestly, I think more people would come here if the pay was a little higher. But other than that, it's not all about money, you know, and we preach that too, that, you know, you have a good department full of people that care about you, a community that really does support us a lot. And, you know, and good benefits and so on. So I don't know. I mean, it's usually early on, they're gonna go to, say, the state police or a federal agency. There's not a whole lot of jump into other municipalities. But the one particular one I'm talking about, you know, it's pretty well planned place, and it's a really nice place. So I do worry that we might lose some people there. I'm hoping not.
Which municipality is that?
It's across the river and.
And to the north?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have to live your life on 787. Who wants to
Or
live?
maybe alternate stuff.
Let's live in a suburban health.
Council President.
Yep, I just one other. In terms of lateral transfers. How frequently do we get them in?
We just got
Yeah, we got a couple people, I only took a couple of people, but we took a couple of people from East Green Bush, people from North Green Bush. Not really anywhere else. It has definitely dwindled. I mean, it used to be more often. We used to get people from the sheriff's department, but not anymore. So not a lot. I'm always beating that drum. I mean, talking to people at the academy and stuff like that, which I probably shouldn't do, but I gotta worry about us. But there's still not coming.
Yeah, hiring is hard
Yeah.
across the board.
Council President.
Thanks, Chair. And, I know we're asking you tons of questions, et cetera, but I do want to go on record. You have escalated our park walk and talk. Little by little, it's growing. I personally want to thank you for that. I think it's huge. The community sees it, not just, as you said, the pop-up barbecues, all that are great, but interacting with the community and really, getting our community police officers to know the neighborhoods. And that's beginning. I'm seeing it in Osgood. I'm seeing it in Little Italy, North Central, the Burg. Attending the neighborhood meetings are huge. Your officers are beginning to interact with code in other departments. I love that. That's what I want to see,
Oh, yeah, me too.
and I think it's growing, Chief. I really do. So I want to thank you. I think you begun to start that intense park walk and talk, which I think is very important. So,
Thanks.
real quick. So our average pay is about 75. What, are we seeing compared to other municipalities? Is it like 85-ish?
Yeah, that's about the, anywhere from 82 to the low 90s, honestly.
And she said, Chief, the pride, I see a lot of pride in our officers, the culture's important, retention. What, while we're talking about this, what can the council do to assist, to try to retain our officers, and get them over that hump? Because you're right, I do follow in full disclosure, my nephew he keeps me abreast of officers leaving, et cetera. God bless you. And, how can we get over that hump? Because we're investing in these officers, 3-4 years, and then all of a sudden we're seeing some of them scoot. What can we as the council, do to try to retain our officers a little bit more to get them over that hump?
Public support really would probably be the biggest thing, that you support your police department and the good work that they do, and and engage them. I mean, we're always, hammering that we need to engage, but the public needs to engage too, and politicians need to engage too, what I mean? So it can't be a one-way street, and it can't be just once a year at the work ceremony. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And,
That you feel appreciated, there's gratitude for the hard work that they do.
what would you say we average laterals a year that we lose, maybe? How many?
Probably only a couple, I mean, some years there's been 3 or 4, and then other years there's been none. So I mean, a couple. Usually, like I said, usually it's the state police. So we had an officer that actually went to the state police, changed his mind, and came back, and I was glad. He was good. So the grass isn't always greener, money isn't everything. You're gonna be happy.
Happiness, definitely is something very important. And then lastly, Chief, minimum manning. Obviously it hasn't changed in a long time. Has that been discussed at all, or any traction in that area?
Not as far as contractually it hasn't, but not a couple days goes by that one of us isn't saying, bring a couple more guys in, oh, you're busy, bring a couple more guys in. So I mean, there's the give details that usually have at least 4 people on it, plus then you may have a minimum manning of 8 people. But that's not really true, you know what I mean? You have 8 people that are assigned to those patrol zones. But then you have detectives and you have traffic cars, you have evidence technicians, and you have the sergeants, depending. Now on midnights, you might only have 8 or 9 people. But on midnights, most of the time, that's okay. I mean, the bulk of the calls are on days and afternoons.
Yeah.
So
But you know what, I think.
I'd love to have more, but that's a contractual thing that it would have to be hammered out because the more people you put on currently, the more people take the day off. So it doesn't really help.
Totally get it. My point, and you hit it exactly, is the point that there are more than 8 officers. It's obvious, I'm door to door quite a bit lately. And one of the things I hear, well, we only have 2 officers up here and then they have to run down North Central or vice versa, et cetera.
And that's true. I mean to interrupt you, but that is true. So I don't want to take away from the
Right.
fact that if you're in patrol and you're assigned that zone, that is your job and that's your primary job. So the sergeant who's sitting at his desk investigating something, doing computer work or something like that, isn't going to go to that call because that's not his job. His job is to be a detective. Now, if there's an emergency, yeah, he's going to get up and he's going to go out and he's going to help. But as far as like the uniform force in the patrol division,
Right.
that's true. I
Yeah,
mean,
I get that.
you know.
And, however, give does afford us some time. I mean, that's.
It does give, and then our justice assistant Grant Jag
Yeah. helps
helps us, and I mean, there's often more people out there. They're not assigned to go to the call. They're assigned to an area that may alleviate calls in that area because they're there. So I mean, it kind of all works together.
Thanks, Steve.
I mean, if you have guys say walking down, I don't mean to keep going on, I want to explain it. So like you have a walking detail downtown or something, it's gonna, more likely than not, it's gonna free up a nuisance call that's gonna happen down there because the guys are there already. You know what I mean? So those zone 2 cars can concentrate on another part of their zone.
Any other questions from council members? Okay, then we can move on to our last item on the agenda. It's regarding policies on high-risk search warrants, and it actually came about in a recent public forum. A constituent spoke about his particular experience, and so we kind of wanted to delve a little further into this policy. So can you bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have Deputy Chief Keen speak a little bit about it. He's I mean, I'm familiar with it, but a lot of those things fall under his purview, so I ask him to talk about it.
Hello. Is there something in particular about the,
Well, can you walk us through the policy itself in general terms?
I don't have the policy in front of me, but I can walk you through
What's
it.
the expectation?
When we have a high risk search warrant, we do what's called a threat assessment, search warrant threat assessment, which basically is a matrix. That matrix is filled out by the investigating officer that determines certain qualities that exist in this unique situation, such as the past history of the individual we're going to talk to, the physical layout of the residence, if there's been a history of guns in the residence, firearms and such. This is all put together and there's points assigned to each thing. Now, if the matrix hits a certain point, we will discuss whether or not we're going to use a SWAT team, which we call emergency response team. If it's above a certain amount of points, then it's a mandatory activation of SWAT team. So it's not just something where we're like, oh, let's use them, let's not use them. There's a matrix that's completed for every time search warrants are done and whether or not we're going to use the emergency response team.
Council members have questions?
So you just went through, what you guys did prior to, these high-risk search warrants. What do you do day of? What's the kind of process? That you can share with us?
Yep, so what happens, once this matrix is, threat has been completed, and we decide we're gonna use the emergency, response team, and that matrix is reviewed by the officer that completes it, submits it to his supervisor, who then also submits it to the ERT team leader, who then submits it to me. So it's reviewed by 4 different levels before we decide whether or not we're gonna execute it. Once it's been approved, the team leader or a designee will start to put together a plan based on the intelligence we have. And once a plan comes together, then we call everybody in for a briefing. And that briefing determines how we're gonna proceed to the scene, what action we're gonna take, how we're gonna execute it, what happens if things don't go the way that they're planned, they're supposed to be executed, what are our contingency plans? We also bring out the fire department, which brings out medical staff for us and the community. We also bring out K9 units for containment, and depending on the availability, we bring out armor too, because that allows them to be close by. So once that plan is put in action, then everybody's briefed, questions are asked, and once everything's been gone through, then they will gear up, mount up, and go to the location.
That's really helpful. So I know we talked about this, I think, last week, police chief. But I guess kind of what happens when you're either in the building or apartment or someone else, they've redone the flooring, so the floor plan isn't matching. What you guys, researched, what happens then?
When we, in recent knowledge, that's happened one time. In that instance, that information that when the investigating officer fills out the threat assessment, it's preceded by all that individual officer's investigation. So it's not necessarily just one person says, that's the house. They check all their databases, they check with other information providing non-Troy PD services and confirm that information. We can't have with reasonable confidence believe that that's our location. We will not do it, or we'll push it off until we can make those confirmations, whether that's additional surveillance or whatever it may be.
This particular instance of barricade, it makes it a little bit different than a first.
That situation, and I don't want to get too far into it because the criminal case, I think, is still pending. So the information we had was confirmed in addition to what the victim said. The issue that came about is, and I can't be 100% sure because when I was speaking to the detective, he was saying too, the apartment was recently vacant and the suspect actually was able to access that apartment, which gave us the wrong door. And on top of that, when we contacted somebody that had direct knowledge on, they also identified the wrong door. So when we were in there, we stopped everything, reevaluated everything, locked it down, slowed everything down, went upstairs, realized the upstairs person wasn't involved, got them out of there, took care of the person whose house the door we pushed in. We took care of that person, got him in the back of the car, got him safe, dry, all the heat, humidity, the rain, the whole 9 yards. And then we started figuring things out and realized that there was a back apartment that you could access, not readily apparent. And I know this because I was there. So stop, reevaluate, find out what's going on, and move forward.
Yeah. And then there was another incident that was brought up. I don't have a date for that one, in North Central.
Angels
Yeah, I believe so.
That, again, was a search warrant based on good information, surveillance, confirmation, and everything else. I know the individual was not happy with us. I was also there for that one. We actually, our detective captain spoke to the individual, and that was discussed right then and there. And when we left, our biggest understanding was he was most upset that code was gonna shut his house down. Because the back entranceway was built over or floored over, so there was not a secondary exit point. So the captain actually talked to him, code was talked to, and he was explained how to proceed, like remove it. And once it's removed, code can come back and open your arms back up.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Are you on all these sites or just close to them?
I try to go to them when practical, especially my on-call weeks. And again, I'm the final signature on it, and it's not taken lightly. There's a lot of questions on the matrix that aren't in there that are asked, such as how many people are in there? How many are kids? How about dogs? How about, we're asking all these questions because we know what we're doing here is, yeah, we don't take it lightly at all. So, and again, they gotta hit certain criteria for us to activate our SWAT team. And there's times that we're on that border that under the mandatory activation, that sometimes we will go with, we'll activate, other times we're like, we're gonna go with this due response. Or other times, we don't do that at all. We will take a completely different tack and take them outside the house because we just like this, we don't think we can do this in the best possible safe manner for all people involved. So we're gonna do it this way. So again, none of this is taken lightly.
Great. I guess I have like some more general questions. So it sounds like, I guess in general, when things go awry, do you guys have the PORB involved in investigating these kinds of things or do a different entity handle it?
Depending on are you talking about an activation of the emergency response team?
No, for the police objective or,
I don't, but are you asking?
oh, like for, yeah, for, if there's like no search, either search warrant or if there's any other sort of accident that occurred when you guys get them involved itself.
The board doesn't investigate it because there's not a personnel complaint normally involved with it, and again, it's part of our
Yeah, I mean, it's when something does go awry, I mean, it's debriefed at the end, you know what I mean? And we talk about, why did this happen? So it doesn't happen again. And stuff like that. As far as the FORB is not an investigative body. And they review the process that was taken when a personnel complaint is made. That's what's a little different. In the particular instance you're talking about, down in your area, a personnel complaint was made, so they will ultimately be looking at that.
So I guess my understanding is that there was kind of going back to the accident on Hoosick, there was 3 cops that were going the same speed limit and had their lights and sirens on. Are those other 2 officers also being investigated or researched or any of that?
That's not accurate. That's what was in the Times Union, right? So
Yeah.
that's not accurate, and it is still being investigated by the Attorney General's office. But I can tell you that that's not accurate. So.
You want to tell us what is accurate?
Not bad.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. I mean, I wish I could talk to you and tell you more. I can't. I wish I could do an internal investigation. I can't. You know what I mean? I'm bound by that state executive order, and this is where we are.
I understand.
No, I get it too. I don't want people thinking, because I hate it too. I hate that it seems like we're hiding or we're not able to do this, at this point, at this juncture. We will be able to, what I mean, we're just not yet.
And then I guess I have two last questions, I believe. So I guess kind of just thinking about morale, you guys were kind of talking about all that, got me thinking how did this like accident really impact the morale of your officers? If you want to share that.
Yeah, well, everybody that I've encountered was pretty, sad and devastated by it. I mean, they feel sorry for Mr. Alapawi that was deceased, and they feel sorry for the whole situation, really, yeah. I mean, it was some people are still going through it, really. I mean, it was a horrific, tragedy.
Yeah, it's really traumatic when something like that happens. And then, so I'm just kind of curious, like what kind of trauma support exists for civilians or officers when, either collision happens or something goes awry.
Yeah, we have public safety EAP, which is provided from the city, and we also we're a member of the New York State Law Enforcement Assistance Program, NILE. So we've actually had members attend sessions there, and we have a peer support team as well. So we try to provide as much support as we can, and allow officers if they need to see someone or speak with someone. As far as the public is concerned, we don't provide that to the public. I think that probably the county health department or county mental health might, but it's not something that the department provides.
Any other questions? Councilmember Figueroa?
I just had a question in regards to the search, to the warrants. Is the paperwork provided, when you guys are going into these, search warrants? Are they presented to, the house that you go to search the locations or execute, what you need to do in those certain location? I just asked because in a similar situation, the person described that there was no like paperwork present or anything that.
The law requires that we leave a copy of an inventory that Ray and I we take. And the search warrant, especially when it's executed with the SWAT team, it's not what we bring with us. Like, oh, we got a search warrant. We make sure that the scene is safe before we do anything else. And the signed part can be shown, yes, with the judge's signature.
Yeah, if the person is there, if they're not there, then it's left there. But if the person who's the subject of the search of the resident, it's definitely shown to them that it's been signed by a judge and here's the search.
All right, I think we've had a great evening of information. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I think we really got some good information tonight. I hope that it answers some questions for some folks in the public and continues that conversation that is so important for us to have. So I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you at another point in time, hopefully not around something so tragic. At this time, we do not have any legislation for comment, but I would entertain any kind of comments from the public if they wish to speak on anything that was addressed tonight. Not a question and answer, it is if you just wish to comment. You folks are welcome to leave.
Okay.
Yes, thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
Sheriff.
you.
Thank you. Council. Appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Could you just please state your name and your place, not your actual physical residence, but your city, town, whatever.
I am Rita Drysdale and I live here in Detroit, New York. Thank you for bringing this forward tonight. It's been a long time coming, I think. Thank you for the questions that were asked. I'm not sure where to go with this because I think that there's a lot that's been presented that isn't always accurate. So it sounds like there may be dash cam footage, but that's not being released or we don't know the presence of it. It sounds like the department has a great culture, but we're also hearing that morale is down. It sounds like they're doing great with crime, but we need more cops. It sounds like they're confident and have good policies, but I have an email from Chris Keene telling me that their policies aren't actually in alignment with the family, which is what I got the last time I spoke here. And I was asked, well, what if we did this? It's not my job to evaluate your policies. I hope that they can do that on their time. What I'm curious about are all of the accidents that didn't come up. By the way, just a quick policy check. Because I have it this time and I didn't last time. The City of Troy's current policy says that the officer need not progress through each level of force before reaching the final level of force. The can't wait recommended policy is officers shall strive to use the minimum amount of force necessary to accomplish a lawful purpose, including levels of force lower than the level of threat. Officers shall not, under any circumstance, use a level of force higher than the level of threat. That to me does not sound like what is in the policy, which is that the officer does not need to progress through each level of force before reaching the final level of force. That is still in the use of force policy. That's a problem. That needs to be fixed. And it has gone too long with that. And I have a whole table of all the other things that don't conform. The police have this too, because I've sent it to Chris. I'm curious about all of the other accidents that have also happened around town that we're aware of, where Troy police hit or struck somebody, or almost hit and struck a mother, child, business owners, and other residents in this town. And there seems to be a pattern that when someone is struck, they cite them with a violation for failure to yield to an officer. But they drop that if you don't press or pursue anything against them. We know this because after Xavier, I hope I said his name correctly, can someone confirm that? I know that after he was killed, there were hundreds of people who showed up in those comments on Sidewinder and said, oh, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And I reached out to every single person and asked them, can you share more? One person pulled all the FOIL records that they had and said, this is happening with other people. This is what is happening. This is what is occurring. February 22nd, we know what occurred. February 2023, TPD entered an intersection, nearly hit a car and a mother and her infant. October 2021, Middleburg Street and 6th Avenue, TPD ran a red light and totaled a car at the intersection. June 2021, 5th Avenue and Lansingburg, TPD ran a red light and totaled a car in the intersection and ticketed the driver for failure to yield. June, went through that one. January 2020, TPD ran a red light, totaling a van, sending that business owner to Old Medical Center. Ticketed him. And I believe in July 2009, which has been a long time, a 5-year-old boy was struck and killed by an officer responding. Unfortunate and terrible accident. But this is something that happens all the time. Everybody knows that TPD drives too fast and reckless. And my question is accountability when it comes to HR with policies. They're telling us the policies are good, and I'm telling you right now, the policies are not. They have not been reviewed thoroughly. And again, it is not my job to make sure that that language conforms. So who is doing that from a compliance and insurance perspective? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else from the public who would like to comment on this evening's proceedings?
Good evening. My name is Eric Spinner. And I'm here to talk about budget as it relates to the Department of Code Enforcement.
I'm sorry, sir, but tonight we're discussing these policies. We're not discussing other items on the agenda that aren't on the agenda. So there'll be another opportunity for you to do that at another meeting. But tonight we were discussing the police policies on speed, cameras, sirens, high-risk search warrants, and crime statistics.
I see the budget is on the agenda.
Chair,
No, it's,
he missed the meeting, the earlier one. That's all.
Didn't happen?
It
I
it
wasn't here.
happened earlier. Yeah, Chair, Eric missed the budget.
Oh.
So that's why. And Thursday, we have a budget meeting, but I don't know if the chair wants.
okay, I will waive, at this point, I misunderstood. That meeting took place earlier. This is the Public Safety Committee meeting at this point in time.
Yeah, no, I got that. So of course, at the end, I put a public agenda
No, the committee
about the
meeting,
budget.
yeah, okay. But just so you know, for future reference, committee meetings do not have opening and closing public forums.
Okay.
I'm waiving the rule tonight to allow public forum on tonight's agenda only. But since you missed the previous meeting and you apparently want to talk about the budget, I will entertain that at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now, I understand that crunching the numbers is not an easy thing to do. But I also understand that we're facing a housing crisis here in Troy that isn't going to go away anytime soon. When the building on Fourth Avenue collapsed, people asked me to look into that. And since there was some parallels to what happened to us at Harbor Point Gardens, I readily agreed. And in conducting my investigation, I met dozens of people who live in houses that are either next to or adjacent or live in buildings that either collapsed or are slated to be demolished at the present time. Now that adds to the hundreds of people that I've met since September 1st, when I told the council I was going to the housing complex in Troy to meet with people about their concerns. And the concerns of a lot of people are that the resources don't exist in the Department of Code Enforcement to tackle the major problems that exist. For example, according to the ordinance of Troy, code enforcement is supposed to inspect abandoned buildings twice a year. In our code. With respect to the building on Fourth Avenue, had this building been inspected at least once pursuant to that code in a mindful manner, what happened would not have happened. Next, we're told, you've been told, but the council has been informed by Corporation Council that the resources don't exist to enforce violations, because that would tie up inspectors from performing their other tasks. I've had the opportunity to be in court numerous times over the last couple of months following the proceedings against our landlord. And what I learned from that was that the Corporation Council does not have the resources to actually take care of the cases that are on the calendar each day. For example, we have periods of times where the judge is sitting on the bench literally for hours, 2 hours at the last hearing, waiting for defendants or respondents to counsel their cases with the city attorney in order to get before the judge. And in all fairness, Mr. Foley, he can't be everywhere. So Mr. Foley is there alone, and he can have dozens of cases to counsel within a period of time from 9 to 12:30, 1 o'clock when the court adjourns. So that I bring that up because that's connected to code enforcement, because we got 9, 10, 11 landlords sitting out in the hallway waiting to counsel their cases to move them forward. And what happens is the court gets backlogged, not because they couldn't take these cases, because it took so long for the city attorney to counsel them that they get bumped over to an adjournment date, in which time nothing is done about the actual violations that the landlord is fair or fair. So I would say this. Although there are many priorities and each person can choose which priorities they find to be the most important. And that is arguable and debatable whose priorities should assume the uppermost weight on our agenda. But I put forth to the council tonight that enforcing the violations that pertain to housing and building are a major importance to the quality of life of the people who live here, and certainly if we expect to be a magnet for people to come to our city in the future, the current circumstances as they exist with regard to enforcing our housing violations is surely sorely lacking. We need money, code enforcement. We need the city attorney to have the amount of money they need in their budget, probably to hire somebody else to go to court on a daily basis. So Mr. Foley isn't there all by himself. I mean, I told the judge, he would say, oh, you're gonna have to find Mr. Foley. I know he's not out there doing anything, but to see a judge have to sit for 2 hours waiting for a case because it hasn't been counseled. You want to talk a waste of resources, there it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments from the public?
My name is John Kane, I'm a resident. I would like to just very quickly point out that there was an accident with the life of a young father in February of 2023. You guys don't have full access to the investigative report from the state police yet, but there were questions in the community, certainly about police procedures that could have been answered in March 2023, April 2023. There was no reason that the police had to wait this long to sit on public safety and give counsel about what their policies were regarding party cams, regarding dash cams, regarding public safety. I find it appalling that the public safety chair would wait until a month before the election to come in and grandstand about an accident and a policy that affects so many people. I find it just particularly infuriating. I do hope that in the future, the council will have a public safety chair who is more responsive to public needs and more thoughtful about public safety.
Thank you. Any other comments? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.